Hi, everybody. This is Lowell Hostot, and we're talking about music theory. And we've talked about rhythm, and we've talked about melody. Now we're going to talk about harmony. And in my view, harmony is not an end to itself, but rather is a merger of these two ideas of horizontal, which is melody, and vertical, which is rhythm. And so when you approach harmony from the standpoint of linear development, as Bach did, and as Counterpoint shows, and Bach drew his inspiration from older examples musically, from Palestrina and others in the Renaissance and pre-Renaissance. But Bach basically synthesized this new use of linear writing with the advent of equal temperament, which gave him the liberty to introduce chromaticism. And so in his mind, harmony really came from, I believe, linear writing and from the power of each line. And if you study Bach chorales, you'll find probably the greatest example of how he used these concepts and synthesized these concepts. And each of those four parts, the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, had their own unique trajectory as a line. Each line was strong. If you played the bass line by itself, it really felt whole in itself. It wasn't just supportive to the melody. And the same was true for each line. So over time, there was basically an understanding of how counterpoint was to be developed, and many students were taught this, and the great classical composers would practice this, kind of like an instrumentalist practices scales. This was kind of like the scale exercises for great composers. I understand that Brahms would practice counterpoint every day before he would start writing. Anyway, so the word counterpoint is punctus contra punctus from the Latin, and it means point against point. And as you notate music, you see these dots. And so the idea is that in counterpoint is that you would strive to make sure that each line was as independent as possible. And again, going back to the Bach chorales, I believe that he viewed each one of those lines as a individual participant in a play, having its own unique identity. And so what would happen in counterpoint, and as in a drama, is you would have conflict and resolution, and between parts and between people. And so, for example, here on this keyboard I have a little bit of I'm just going to make this kind of up on out off the top of my head, but let's say that here's conflict between those two notes. It's a minor second, but then what do you do with that conflict? You will resolve it either up or resolve it down. And in counterpoint and strict counterpoint rules, what they want you to avoid is parallel fifths, because that really sounds like one. Without getting into the overtone series discussion, it doesn't sound, those two notes sound more like one note instead of two separate lines. So doing this doesn't sound as unique for each line as doing something like this, or right where the lines move against each other. And the other things they want you to avoid parallel fifths. Parallel octaves is what I mean. And so parallel fifths, parallel octaves is to be avoided. And so it's not as easy as it sounds whenever you start putting four independent parts together, creating harmonic motion. Sometimes you end up creating, when you're first starting learning how to do counterpoint, you end up making these things happen, and you say, oh no, there's a parallel fifth, and you have to go back and refigure it out. It's a little bit like a Sudoku puzzle where you have to figure out how to navigate through all the different harmonic motion. But here's just a little bit of an example of a two-part harmony. So let's say here's your top line, here's your bottom line. So and so they both end up at the same note. So the important thing about understanding counterpoint is how it ends up creating harmony. And again, if you'll study Bach, you'll find that he really predominantly does not think harmonically; he thinks linearly. And I've sat through many theory classes, hearing people talk about Bach in a harmonic fashion, but it's really not harmonic; it's melodic. And so, in a theory class where you're analyzing things vertically, you end up seeing various types of harmonic creativity, but not every once in a while, like more often than not, you'll see these notes that are added into them, and the way they would describe those notes away that are melodic, that don't seem to fit into the chord. They say, well, that's just an added tone. Where that doesn't really have a meaning, that's just an added note, added, but it actually does have a meaning because it's the melodic line that's cutting across the harmony, and it's the pattern of that melodic line. And so I would encourage anybody that's interested in studying more Bach to look at the two-part inventions and the three-part inventions. He in the preface of that book, he said that I'm writing this to show composition students how to compose, as well as teaching the cantabile style of playing. In other words, the singing style of playing. So singing is melodic, singing is linear. So in my view, harmony. This is the opening segment of harmony discussion, and so in my view, harmony is really derived from multiple melodic lines, and that goes back to a core foundational belief that I have about music, is that music is not just sound. Music is relationships, and music is created in relationship, internal relationships with yourself. If you're in worship, your relationship with God, and your relationship in community with others, and your relationship with your audience. And so it's all about relationships, and one of the greatest ways of expressing relationships is this subject of counterpoint and individual unique lines, because each participant has value. And when you look at relationships between people, then you understand, especially in leadership teachings, you understand the value of listening to other people's viewpoints and synthesizing those viewpoints into a cohesive whole. And so the stronger the relationship, the stronger the individuals are, the stronger the relationships will be. And the same is true in music. If you make each line strong, then it will cause a stronger composition in general.